So hello everyone. This is our second source change vlog. We're excited to do this. To kick off, I have a preconceived joke for Anthony. And maybe it's not that funny. Well, we're about to find out. But usually when we do this, it's a little bit of an act of like, I know the interviewer knows what's going on, but we're asking questions of like, tell me about this. I've been very busy planning the CNG forum this year, so I think you're gonna have a very engaged interviewer because I don't actually really know the details of the changes from this last release. So this might not be as much of an act of like, tell me about this recent change. So that was my non-joke that I wanted to share. But with that, I think we can kind of get into it. To kick it off, I'm gonna share a couple stats from like where we're at with source, just to kind of track this over time. Last time for storage, we shared that there were 5 petabytes in volume of storage. We are now at 7.3 petabytes of storage in source, which is quite the jump. Our last one was only 2 months ago. It was like almost exactly 2 months ago. It was May 22nd, the day of my birthday party. So exactly 2 months ago.
A petabyte a month.
Petabyte a month. That's pretty good.
Not bad.
And the object count is a little under a billion, so 950 million. As far as access goes, we're looking at 3.3 billion requests per month. And data downloaded about 3.2 petabytes. For the count of products, last time we were at about 330, but now we're at 665. So have literally doubled the number of products in source in the last 2 months.
Huge. That's great.
Which is huge. And then for accounts, we didn't count the individual numbers last time. We have that number now, but we reported how we had about 130 organizations last time in May 2026. But now here in July 2026, we're at 184. So I've jumped up also quite a bit. And then individual accounts were at 4,692 individual source accounts. And I think people create accounts for downloading data as well, though you don't have to do that. But I think people want to be involved. They're like, they want their username. You know, you never know what's going to happen. Like, it's a good time if you have my username, Michelle. That's crazy. You know, source is going to blow up and everyone's going to wish they had a source account earlier. So that's probably what's going on. Everyone's getting their username that they want now. Is your username
no, yeah. I feel like it should be Anthony or something even shorter, in case we have like a Twitter economy where, you know, handles are like worth.
Yeah, we should start buying up the
people's favorite one. I just did mine to match all my other handles, which came from
is good.
Being late on GitHub, so Anthony was gone, and
yeah,
I think my last name is even gone. I think somebody else took that, so it's just A Lukash, one of many Lukashes.
It's good to have a brand,
and that's cool, and that's as we're saying, we're not done. Like, source is not full. We can take more data. We can take more orgs. So maybe call out, reach out if you want to get in on this party. Upload some data sets. Cool. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to share about kind of source before we jump into things?
No, I think we can jump in. That's our little stats thing. We'll watch it over time, see how it shifts. It's already fun to see the difference. So glad we're doing that. And so, yeah, without further ado, we are actually on version 1 or 1.4.2. We've had some minor updates since creating this event. But the last like big breaking one was 1.4.
Yeah, and maybe we should talk about that too. Like, I almost wonder if we should detach from these version numbers, because unlike, you know, this isn't like an installable software product. This is a, you know, web application, and so I don't know if it's like semantic versioning, or is like the exact right way to do this. Maybe we'll just do change vlogs by date in the future. I don't know.
We'll see.
That's what we're doing right now. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. We shipped 1.4.0. That was like 2 weeks ago, and then we've patched a few things to just get a few more refinements in there. Nothing like monumental, but yeah, smooth out some processes around the things I'm going to demo today.
Cool.
With that said, should I jump into it, or what do you think?
Yeah, let's jump in. Let me start. I've got a little notes here of things that summary from the last few, both that big release of 1.4.0 and then the minor ones since then. So let's start talking about the app UI UX. What's new? What can users are seeing it themselves, but maybe walk us through what changes have happened.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a good way to split this up because, to share kind of more about the system. Like, largely, there's two portions, right? There's the front end, which is the app, the UI, and then there's this data access layer, our data proxy, which is served on a different URL. And so, yeah, let's talk about the UI first. We've seen this before. This hasn't changed too much. In terms of what we're looking at right now on my screen share. The biggest thing, maybe subtle, is I notice it's faster. We put a lot of time into just optimizing the application so it's really responsive and you can just kind of whip around and explore products in a fast manner. I feel it, like I said, what we did was, if you were looking at the details, we collapsed all the database requests. So if there's any redundant database requests, we just serve that data twice in the rendering of the UI rather than making two calls. Whatever, it really made a lot of impact, and so the app's faster. We don't need to spend too much time on that. A new way to get around more quickly. The menu is different. Maybe I can zoom in a little. Let's see if this works. It doesn't. Okay. Here we go. And now I can zoom in.
Nice.
Basically, the idea is that we want to make it faster for you to quickly jump to kind of your organizations and your products, and just like jump in there if you have some administrative task to do. So I can do that and just jump into here, or go and create a new org if you have the permission for that, or a new product within an org if you have a permission for that. And then finally, there's this common issue where we had the invitations to join an organization, and the way it would work is that if I invited you, Michelle, to join maybe the Development Seed organization, you wouldn't really know unless you went and viewed the organization profile. And that was just like maybe a like an incomplete feature. And so what we did now is that you'll see a little red dot by your name up here, and then under this invitations tab, you will see your pending invitations, which I have none. But yeah, so that's that. New menu. Try it out. Let us know how you feel. And let's talk about viewers. That's like, I think, kind of a standard thing to talk about in these front end changes. Harvard Library Innovation Lab. I really butchered the name on the last Changevlog, so I really wanted to get this right. We're going to call him Lil for short. Lil, again, contributing. Chris Setzer contributed this PDF viewer. So now, here's a data product from GovScape. And now we can click on these PDFs and view them, which is really nice. PDFs, kind of a maligned data format, but we still want to be able to view them in source, and we can do that now. So cool. That's frankly it for the data viewers right now. Just a good one though, and yeah, keep them coming. I think we've got a few on the burner that we're working on. I don't want to give away too much, but some czar work, some kind of mist viewers are being kind of experimented with. I don't know when they'll land, but they're continuing to move. And then, yeah, I guess continually I'll say to the audience, bring your own. You're welcome to contribute a data viewer. It's just an iframe that takes the URL and the query parameter. Yeah, we'd love more data viewers. Okay, so you're in the app, you've got data. Kind of, I just mentioned this idea of like a maybe shortcoming of features. One basic shortcoming that we had in source that we hadn't finalized until now is uh, is the ability to go backwards, to delete things. Pencils have erasers, and now Source Cooperative has the delete button. And so yeah, if you go into edit mode of a product that you control, you can go in here and delete either an object or even a prefix, which is kind of conventionally considered a folder, and it'll delete all the objects within that folder, right? Yeah, I can say goodbye to this. I delete it, and back behind the scenes, it's making all these delete requests to everything in this folder, which I don't know how big this folder was, so maybe that wasn't the best one to demo. But okay, now it's gone. Cool. And then if I refresh it, you can see it's gone. So that's like deleting objects, and then of course I can go into admin, go to the bottom, and get your standard like, are you sure you want to do this? Delete the product itself. And I could delete only the record and keep the data in object storage. This makes sense in a situation particularly where someone else is using this data. I don't know. We typically don't recommend you doing this. Usually, if you're deleting the product, you probably want to delete the data itself as well. But you got to do the copy and paste thing, and then it'll finally enable this button and read this modal. Really, I encourage anyone who's deleting a product to like really consider what they're doing, because it's deleting things. There's no going back. So that's that. Deleting things. We do it now. Yeah.
Cool.
Michelle, Authority, do you have any questions or thoughts about those?
No, I guess, yeah, I'd be curious with like, if someone just kept the record, what could that come? Could they make it a product again, or is it just like?
Yeah. We're not currently, we don't have a policy of like preserving IDs for products. So if you delete it, you can create a new one with the same name, and you can be back at it. Because this is a common thing. If somebody creates a product and they do something wrong and they just want to like trash it and restart, and so we want to support that. So yeah, nothing like, you can recreate it, but we don't preserve anything behind the system, behind the scenes. Like if we say it's deleted, it's actually deleted from our object store.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
We'll move on.
Yeah. So that's all for the front end.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh,
We spent a lot of time on this iteration, going to like fundamental values added to the data proxy. And so earlier we built this data proxy. It's globally distributed. It's serverless, as a really short cold start time, and really focused on that. But really just kind of scaffolded out the infrastructure to connect to backends, serve data to users across the world. But the proxy's logic itself was pretty light. We weren't doing a lot. And in this iteration, which we're demoing today, we're really building out functionality in the proxy. And that's largely around the concept of authentication, and the things you can now do through the proxy, because we know who you are when you're connecting to it. So previously, the proxy only supported unsigned requests, so anonymous requests. And so for that reason, the proxy could not support writes or deletes to the underlying object storage, because again, we don't know if it was Michelle making the request or some nefarious user. And so so now you can authenticate with the data proxy, and that's effectively what we're doing now in the front end. When you enter edit mode, I guess maybe this is slightly a front end feature. We can view the credentials, and the credentials are actually a little different, because now we provide this endpoint that's pointing to the data proxy. If you're writing data, we no longer are saying, hey, go write data directly to the S3 backend or whatever object storage you're using, write data source, and source will now correctly send it to the appropriate backend. And what this means is that we can now support more cloud providers. So again, writes used to only work through the UI with AWS S3, but now they can work with Azure or with Google Cloud Storage, or theoretically Cloudflare's R2 or Backblaze. We haven't tested those, but in theory, those work. So yeah, it's important to know when you're using these credentials, you got to use the endpoint. So we've added the endpoint URL here as well in the environment. And we also now, just FYI, share both Windows formatted environment variables and Mac format. And then finally, we've added this like INI set of credentials for your AWS profile. However, during this demo, I'm going to demo a better way to do this, which actually is kind of teased right here. We also have the CLI to authenticate with the data proxy. And so maybe actually I'll just do that right now. Let's open up my terminal. Here we go. So here I am in this GitHub repo, but let's just go home. Okay, so yeah, let's I guess. Oh, actually, maybe sorry. I should show just what we're talking about. We got source co-op CLI. And so there's a repo now in Source Cooperative. It's public, called Source Co-op CLI, and it is available for install either directly from GitHub or on Homebrew if you use that, and then some PowerShell instructions, and from source if you want. And so the idea is that what we can do now is log in with source, which I'll just do source co-op login. And basically, it'll open a browser in my machine and begin this login flow. And so I have a passkey set up, so I'll just use that. And then, I'll allow Source Co-op CLI to, get my identity. And so yes, and now it says, okay, you can close this tab and return your terminal. And so I'll do that. And now I've got these credentials saved. And what we do is we save it in our operating system's keyring. And so those are persisted on my machine in an encrypted format. And my machine's like native, like credential manager. So Windows has one, Linux has one, Mac has one. I believe Linux has one. If you want, you can also just like when you log in. When you log in, you can just dump the credentials too. You type no cache, and it won't save it. It'll just print it to standard out. This is good if like you need to send it to like a machine over SSH or something. You don't want to cache it locally. You can do that. And also another important function is duration. You can pass in this kind of human flavored duration of either in seconds or 5M for 5 minutes, and you can go up to 1 day today. And we're considering expanding the amount of time for the timeouts for these credentials, but right now, so I guess if I wanted to do that again, I would do maybe let's do this. Duration is, here we go. So I'll do something like this, and whatever, log in, get credentials now that'll last 24 hours. And then cool, that works. And so how do I use this when I'm using something like this AWS CLI, or maybe a Python script that I've written, or DuckDB, or some application? And I found the easiest way is to integrate this with your AWS profile. So if I run tail and I look at the bottom bit of my AWS config, you'll see that I've added this profile for source. And the AWS CLI supports this credential process. So I can point this, say, hey, AWS, when you want my credentials, run this command, source co-op space creds. And it's going to dump out the JSON format of my AWS credential, or my source cooperative credentials, and give it to the AWS CLI. And so it'll do that, and then also use this endpoint URL that says, hey, don't go to AWS for these requests. Actually go to Source Cooperative. So now I don't need to type in dash dash endpoint and all this with every command. I can just use this profile, and these two things are kind of inherited. I'm using this EC2 metadata disabled. I actually don't think this works. This is noise. So if you're watching this, you can try it, but it doesn't actually disable the metadata check from the CLI. But that's an AWS thing. Okay, so let's maybe demo it. So now I can just type in AWS profile, equals source AWS S3 LS. And actually, let's maybe go. Yeah, let's do this. Now I can go to alucache slash what was that product I always use? Source experimentation, I think. Let's go in here. alucache experimentation. So I'll copy that. I'll dump it in here. So now, like, I can do writes from my CLI. So, okay, hold on a second. I gotta get rid of this stuff. This auto completion is not working. Hold on. Okay, sorry to make everyone watch me stumble through my terminal. So I'll do send this hex directory up to my product. Here we go. And I'll do dash dash recursive. I recognize we're off the screen. Here we go. Recursive. And if all goes well, we're fetching those credentials from our keychain and then using those to authenticate with the source data proxy, and therefore can make writes. And now if I refresh this, we should see, oh, it dumped all these hex files into my product. Cool. So yeah, we can now write through the data proxy. And so why would you want to do that? Well, now we can enforce the permissions I have set on a product, where I can say I share access to a product with different users, or share access with an organization with different users, and therefore they are allowed to access like our products within that organization. Now we can use source to kind of dictate access management for data products and allow them to people to write to those products and make edits and changes. So yeah, that's the big one with the source CLI. Try it out. It's still pretty early, but I really think this is the way for people to get longer term access, just a day right now. And we're still working on providing solutions for like continually refreshed access. Imagine like GitHub Actions workflows to write to a product, or long-term access. Imagine like a high performance computing environment needs some credentials and they don't have access to like a browser to log in like this. And yeah, we're still working on those solutions. Those aren't here today, but this is the start of that, right? Of using the data proxy and the source API to enforce authentication and figure out who's allowed to access what. So yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that, Michelle? Anything you want to comment on, or should I keep cruising?
I think that's good. So basically, what people see in the UI for source, it's the same thing for the CLI, but it's probably easier to do in the CLI.
Totally. Actually, yeah, that brings up a really good point. We've also, in this iteration, it's like so not interesting to talk about unless you're really into the details of how applications work. The source CLI is just a client for the data proxy, much in the way that me in my terminal speaking to the data proxy. You know, when I go to edit mode on this product, what I'm doing is I'm actually calling the AWS has a service called STS, and we basically mimicked that for source. And so I'm calling our own private STS endpoint, just like the source CLI did, and generating temporary credentials in the exact same API operation that the CLI did. So we're basically for both perspectives, I'm connecting as my user to the data proxy. You know, there's not some magic like front-end application backdoor to the data proxy. Everything is just as your user, and these are all just different clients speaking to the data proxy. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So that's for the data proxy. Can people still use the AWS CLI to upload data to their product?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's
Okay.
kind of what this is, right?
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think just like to really put a bow on this, there is nothing you can do with the source front end that you can't do with a CLI now, or just like
Got it.
API operations. Yeah, they're really just the client. They're both clients for the same data proxy S3 compliant API that we've been working on.
Okay. Got
Yeah.
it.
So
Cool.
yeah, go for it. I mean, and also this concept of like AWS profiles and the credential process. This carries over to other applications. I think I mentioned this, but I want to kind of reiterate. If you're using Bodo 3 and running Python scripts, that respects the AWS profile, and it will do the same thing, and as will DuckDB, and as will other tools. So I really love the AWS profile kind of pattern.
Got it. Yeah.
And I think it should allow people to interact with source in a more like I don't know, code native, terminal focused way, maybe.
Cool.
Yeah, more in the way that they are familiar with cloud storages. But however, source is also trying to be super accessible. So
Mm-hmm.
you can still just use the upload directory here, and
Cool.
that works just as well.
Amazing.
But yeah, they're both doing one last detail. They're both doing multi-part uploads. So they're both like breaking all your files into little chunks and sending them bit by bit, and then yeah, trying to go as fast as possible. Okay, should
Cool.
we talk more about where the data is stored?
Yeah. Let's do it.
This is like the big one, I think.
Okay.
This is where the majority of the work went. And again, I gotta tell you, for people watching this Changevlog, this is not the sexiest stuff because this is so like fundamental. But it's critical we did it. And I'm gonna kind of pitch at the end of like what we can do now once we've done it. So before I really jump into it, I need to explain this concept of data connections. So data connections is a model we have on Source Cooperative that kind of manages. We have this concept of a product actually. Before I go into that this is like it's got a title and it's got a description and it's got an owner and yada yada, all this stuff. But it also has a data connection, a relationship to a data connection, and that is where we store where the data actually lives in some system. And so it might be a Source Cooperative owned S3 bucket. It might be a Azure Blob Store, like I don't know the term Blob Store. I don't know, or whatever. It can point to all these backends. And so what we've done now is expanded the data connection like experience for users to kind of surface that model and allow users to interact with it more directly. So let's start off with the new product. So if I'm creating a new product, some of you might have seen this form before, and I can do a title and an ID and the owner and all that stuff. But the new thing is we can have a data connection itself. And so now I can select from these data connections that are available to my user uh, which AWS open data bucket I want to send my data to. So if you're in Europe and all your users in Europe, and for whatever reason you want your data stored in Europe, you can easily just select that from this form. Or Canada has one, or Asia Pacific. And so yeah, these are the open data buckets. Your list here, I got some personal ones here that are just because I have access to them, and we can talk about that in a second. But basically, you can now create data products for buckets that match the region you desire to store your data in. So we're surfacing that to the user. We're going global. Send your data where you want. It doesn't have to be in US West 2. Although, with that said, US West 2 is kind of the default for us. So if you don't know where to put it, US West 2 is nice because it's less management operations on our end. But at the same time, you can send it wherever your users are more likely to be. So yeah, that's number one. Data connections, you can select them. But also, even crazier is you can go create your own data connection. This is what we'll call BYOB, bring your own bucket. And so this is like a big one. I'm really excited about it. So I can go maybe to my personal account, and this is a beta feature, by the way. This is not enabled on every user. If you would like to do this, reach out. We're looking for early testers on this. But right now, let's assume you do have the permission. Now there's a data connections tab here in your admin or your like settings, and I can go and create a new data connection and point it to an existing AWS bucket or GCP environment, or whatever, various backends, Azure. Yeah, I can do that and point it to those buckets. And so I think maybe we should just go for the full demo, and I can demonstrate how I can create a private product in the cloud and connect it to Source Cooperative. Here, this is my personal AWS account. It has not a lot of information or data in it, but I'll go to S3 and I can create a bucket. I'll call it alucache Changevlog. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and create this bucket. And so, this is a private bucket. It's not open by default. And now I can go over here and I will create a role. This is a past role I did for this demo. Oh, actually, before I do that, what we need to do is tell AWS that we trust Source Cooperative as an identity provider. And so what that means is that Source Cooperative will send a token to AWS saying, hey, I've signed this as on behalf of data.source.coop. I've signed it, and the audience is Amazon AWS.com. And I'm saying that this user, or we're requesting access to this IAM role. And so what we can do is register Source Cooperative as an identity provider and say, okay, we acknowledge that Source Cooperative is a valid identity provider.
And that's on your end. That's what you're doing.
Yes,
That's not Source. You were doing that.
On my private AWS account, I'm saying I trust Source Cooperative to show that if it shows up with a token, I can validate that it comes from data.source.coop. And what this did back behind the scenes is it gets a thumbprint here of it reads our public key and caches it and says, okay, we now know we have the ability to validate tokens that come from Source Cooperative. Whatever, yeah. And then what we're going to do is create a role and say, okay, if this web identity coming from data.source.coop with this audience shows up, it's going to be able to assume this role. And over here, just so you guys don't have to watch me type, I have a IAM policy that I'm going to paste in here that I'm just going to grant this role access to list that bucket that I just created and read and write to this bucket that I just created for any object in the bucket. And so this is important. The AWS account that owns the bucket is in control of the permissions, right? You only need to grant Source Cooperative as many permissions as you want, or as few, more so. And that's that. You're in control. You don't have to give Source Cooperative the keys to the castle. I recommend not doing that just for operational security. Just give it the minimal permissions needed to get your job done on Source Cooperative. So that might be read only, or it might be read and write if you want to use Source Cooperative to manage your data products. And I'm just going to call this let's select this again. Let's call it whatever. alucache Changevlog role. Okay, cool. So I've created this role now. And it exists. And so I can go and copy this ARN, Amazon resource number. Is that, I don't know what this actually stands for. But I can now go and create a data connection for alucache Changevlog demo. And maybe it's a restricted product now. This is a private product that only logged in users who have permissions through Source Cooperative can access. Let's let me remind myself where I created that bucket. This is in Oregon, US West 2. So let's go back here. Um, okay, let's go to, we don't need to set endpoint, but for authentication type, we're going to pass in that IAM role that I just created. And so it's going to say, okay, I'm going to connect to AWS. I got to get this bucket back in there. Right here. I'm going to connect to AWS. And when I do that, I'm going to try to assume this role as the data proxy and then connect to this bucket. And so I'll admit this stuff's always terrifying to do on a live demo, but let's do it. So now the data connection exists. So now I can go and create a new product called Changevlog demo, and then demo Changevlog maybe. And now I can select that new data connection that I just created. And because I, on the data connection, said that this had to be restricted, now my only options for visibility kind of like are inherited from that. It has to be a restricted product. So on the data connection level, you can control the visibility, which maybe I can take a quick detour. We used to allow you to create AWS Open Data bucket products with any visibility, i.e., restricted, unlisted, or public. However, restricted is kind of a violation of the AWS data program, and it is also actually never really enforced because we weren't using auth at the time. So if you ever had a restricted bucket on AWS Open Data, it is now moved to unlisted. So it won't show up in listing of products, but if someone like types in the address directly, they can't access it. And that's kind of just the nature of the AWS Open Data Program, that we can't have restricted products at this time. Okay, nonetheless, let's create the product. And now what it's doing is it's fetching access credentials. So it's doing that same thing my CLI does. This is the scary part. Oh, it turned yellow. Okay. Sometimes it's kind of a cold start problem. Here we go. Okay, now it worked. So I had to refresh it. We've got it. And now I can go here and hoping the demo gods are shining favorably on me today. I can upload some data here and we can see data got uploaded. And then now I can go to my AWS bucket and refresh the objects in it. And hey, here's all my hex data. So what we've demoed here is that Source Cooperative now can connect in a secure manner to your cloud storage backend. And we can now utilize Source for access control and like a modern API, such as supports HTTP3 and kind of all the new features that we're building onto the data proxy. I guess the way to say it is you can piggyback off of Source Cooperative's data proxy and lean on all the, you get these built-in data viewers. And so now, I have a Parquet data viewer on this private object. Oh, yeah. This actually, yeah. Sorry, this is pending a signed URL feature that is coming along the way. But yeah, you can pick, that's only because this is a private product. But the idea is that you can put products onto Source, piggyback on the data proxy, and therefore lean on all the features that we're constantly building out into Source. And, I don't want to go too far in the future. But things like analytics are coming down the board. Who's accessing your buckets, and things like access control. Maybe you want to share a bucket with the world, but you only want to ship a terabyte a month, and after that you close off access. This is the kind of set of features that we're working towards and can enable by utilizing a data proxy that would otherwise be much more challenging or repetitive doing on AWS buckets that you're kind of doing in a bespoke fashion. So that's that. That was a lot. Michelle, do you have any thoughts or questions?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think the BYOB is cool. And it also is great for organizations that already have data hosted somewhere, but they just want more exposure. Or yeah, like we said, if you want something to be restricted, we don't do that yet. Maybe hopefully in the future we will have something outside of the AWS Open Data Program through Source that allows that functionality. But if you need that now, it's great to have. This is that workaround in that sense. So pretty cool.
Totally. Yeah. And so, yeah. And I will also shout out our friends at Dynamical are doing this today. We've got Dynamical products on Source. They have a lot of products. So the exact one escapes me at the moment, but they're hosted in their own buckets. And let's take a look at this one. I don't know if this is it. No, this is our bucket. But they're doing this where they have their own data proxy, or pardon me, they have custom data connections that point to their products, and yeah, they're leveraging it to serve data on Source. And then again, this is all this. I mentioned earlier we were in violation of the AWS Open Data Program, but now we can create private buckets on a user's behalf. If you need a private product, reach out. We can work with you on making that a reality. We haven't really had a lot of need for that today, but if that is a need, let us know. And like that is now something that is readily available in the Source platform. Yeah, I think that's kind of the end of things I have to demo. Michelle, do you want to talk about kind of what's next in the Source Cooperative universe?
Yeah. So in just about a month, Anthony and I are going to be in Hiroshima for Phosphor-G. And we're doing some sort of demo of Source there. At least I don't still really understand what it is. It's called is it called a demo or is it called a?
Yeah, we signed up for it. It's like a live product demonstration or something.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's Phosphor-G, so it's going to be very open source software focused. And crazy idea. What if we just filmed Changevlog from that location, from that session?
Could be cool.
Fun idea.
Be
I don't know
cool.
if we're actually going to do it, but we haven't committed to that. But I think I like the idea.
Yeah. So stay tuned. And then not specifically Source Cooperative, but as I mentioned at the top of the hour, the CNG Forum is coming up in October. If you were there last year, it's in Snowbird. So last year we were doing it in the spring. This year we're doing it in the fall, October 6th through 9th, in Snowbird, Utah in the United States. So it's going to be pretty cool. The website's got most of the speakers up there, so check it out. We'll get the more detailed agenda out soon, but Anthony will be there as well, talking about Source and other things, surely. Yeah, it's a cool event. And then other events going on too. In Japan, if you're already going to be there for Phosphor-G the week before, CNG has some cool stuff going on. We have a CNG Japan Day, which is full of demos and networking outside of Tokyo. And then that's on August 24th. And then the Stack community is gathering at JAXA, the space agency outside of Tokyo as well, in the opposite direction of where that day is. And that will be a couple days of demos and workshops for people who want to know more about Stack. So then that's Spatiotemporal Asset Catalog, if you don't already know that acronym. So a lot of cool stuff going on, a lot of great educational opportunities and networking things going on. So that's what's going on in the next month or so. A lot of Japan in our future, basically, is what I'm trying to say humbly. So, yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Okay, is that a wrap? What do you think?
I think that's a wrap. Let me check really quick the chat. Either I don't know how to use a chat or nobody said anything. So if you have questions, reach out. We have a Slack for Source that's open to whoever. So if you ever have questions, reach out there. And if you don't know, that's somewhere in our docs. So, and you can always email us too.
Right. You just mentioned something I totally forgot. All this stuff that I demoed, we tried to update. It also landed in the docs.source.coop. So check those docs out if you want to more information about what we demoed today.
Yeah. And they're living docs, so always open for feedback or things that you want to see in there that you don't see. Always looking to improve them. So cool. I think we'll just wrap a couple minutes early. Yeah, reach out if you have questions. And until the next one.